We are now joined by Raghav Jandhyala from Microsoft, and we're going to talk about supply chain trends, things that Microsoft is working in their supply chain, but also a very interesting look into where supply chains are going. Raghav, thank you very much for joining me, and I will be bringing your presentation on the screen in a second. And the stage is yours. Thank you very much.
Very nice. Thank you, Nick, for inviting me. And it's a great pleasure to speak to the broader ecosystem of supply chain professionals. Today, the topic I'll be covering is enabling an AI-powered, resilient, and sustainable supply chain. A lot of words there, but I'll distill it for you all. We'll talk more about the strategic issues facing supply chain, the need for a composable and extensible supply chain platform, and the role of AI in SCM. A brief about myself: I'm Raghav Jandhyala. I work as a principal product leader for developing supply chain products at Microsoft. I've been in this role for about 10 months. Prior to Microsoft, I was with SAP for 18 years. And there I was primarily in the planning and analytical applications in supply chain, retail, finance, and so forth. So glad to be here. Glad to cover this session with you. So let's go to our session. We have about 70% of supply chain leaders have been constantly responding to disruptions since the beginning of 2019. So supply chain is a topic that presidents and every person nowadays talks about because every one of us have been affected. The pandemic only highlighted the underlying challenges that the manufacturers and retailers face and exposed the fragility of global supply chains. So that's where we are today to look at because enabling a resilient and sustainable supply chain is an enormous challenge, and it's on the mind for all of us. So if we look at what we are hearing from our own customers, the challenges are pretty common across multiple domains, multiple verticals. So first of all, the challenges arising from going from the pandemic to endemic. How do we now become a resilient supply chain so that we don't run into the same issues that we ran previously? There's an increasing pressure of reacting to climate change. There's a predicted recessions. There's also geopolitical tensions. So there are all these macro factors that go into the supply chain, and how do we better prepare for that? And then there's also the traditional supply chain challenges, which have not gone away, which is the volatility in the consumer demand. How do we? There's a lot of inventory pressure. In some industries, there's very high inventory that they need to deplete, and then in a certain other industry, there's still high demand, and they're having the inventory pressures. And the challenge of visibility across your supply chain has not gone away. So it has now moved from your traditional four walls of your supply chain to now your tier N, end-to-end multi-tier supply chain, going from all the way from your customers to your business partners and suppliers. Then you might have also heard about rising energy costs, workforce shortages, and also urgency towards operating more sustainability. So these are still the challenges that many enterprises still want, and it's on top of their agenda. But if you look at the current state of systems across the enterprise, we see that there's all these systems which are disconnected. So, for example, there are systems of engagement with your CRM, with your e-commerce application. There's system of execution with your ERPs, warehouse management systems, and so forth. System of plannings, where you do your SNOP. Then there's a system of, and then there's external trading partners, your suppliers, and so forth, and also the real-world signals. So it's always a challenge for customers to have one composable platform where all these can come together in order to help with the insights that they're looking for. And this is where Microsoft has focused on. This is where we focus on to make sure that all these systems we were able to have an composable, interoperable, and extensible ecosystem across these different systems with the connectivity and the data harmonization, so that you can run your business, do more with less. And this is the promise of this intelligent data platform, to bring these different systems together, to have that unified data fabric across all these applications. Supply chain doesn't run with one system. It has a multiple of systems that need to come together. We as a supply chain also focus on, by bringing the Microsoft supply chain platform, So what this platform has is the components like we also Microsoft also provides supply chain management system. There's your traditional cloud ERP where you have inventory management, procurement, production, transportation management, inventory management, all these common warehouse management processes. And then on top, we have also now brought together something called a Microsoft Supply Chain Center. This is a surround application that works across your multiple ERPs, so it's ERP agnostic. And so you have things like both transactional and analytical workloads, which is, for example, your intelligent order management or your supply and demand insights. Also having collaboration with your external suppliers with the supplier portal, and also the data and AI platform. And the most important thing I want to highlight is also this ISVs and partner solutions. So to be able to have this plug and play ecosystem with your partner solutions and your SI solutions is critical for many organizations. So instead of going more like a point-to-point solution, if you have this central command center hub, which uses the best of Microsoft technologies, which is the Azure, the AI, the Teams collaboration, the Power Platform, low-code, no-code agility, along with our applications and the composability, is where we differentiate. So I would like to take an example of this with how to solve a real-world disruption problem. All right. So I would like to show you a quick demo of this Microsoft Supply Chain Center, which brings together, like I said, both insights, analytics, and your transactional and order management systems, all in one place with both the first-party and the third-party applications, so that there's a single pane of a system where you can do all your operations. So where does this help? Today, one of the major challenges is still the supply chain disruptions. And how do I manage those? So we start off with news. So this is AI-powered news, which shows what's happening in your supply chain network. For example, we see that there's a truck fleet in the north area, which is hit by the cyber attack. Okay, and we want to see how we can, what's the impact of that. So we can click on this impacted partners and see that what are the orders that are impacted, what are the partners that are impacted, and also look at what a sort of a mitigation we would have to make sure that the POs that are out there are delivered on time, because we have we have our SLAs to meet. This is where the power of AI comes in to also provide you what are those sort of the high impact suggested strategies to mitigate this. So, for example, it would be something like prioritize orders to large customer accounts, and you can click on the details and see that the system recommended approaches could help you come back, have your OTIF levels be on track. But it also comes with the high customer service level, also comes with a high cost as well, which is about $5,000 in my case. So which is okay for me. And then I would, as a supply chain manager, I would go ahead and activate this. Now, I can also look at the health of my supply chain by looking at my supply and demand insights. This is where it's bringing together large amounts of data across disparate systems into a simple, easy to use, intuitive user interface. So here I can see that my supply coverage is not going to my target that I've set. And if I go into details, we can see that a certain brand, which is Northwind Roasters, has a projected inventory shortage over the next few weeks. So what would I do? I could use the power of my collaboration, so using embedded teams, to see if my external supplier has enough production capacity to meet to deliver this inventory that I need. So with click of buttons, I can directly talk to my external supplier, asking if they can have the enough production to meet the shortage that we are facing, and the external supplier replies back that they do have enough stock, and they can help. And here we are able to now create a PO quickly through the system and get that extra inventory to cover up for our shortage. Now, yes, you have heard, okay, this is fine, but what about tracking to make sure that we are receiving that shipment and it's not at risk? So here's where the power of integrating with the third-party systems, in this case, overhaul, which we brought in as a third-party ISV, comes into play, where you can track the shipment details of for the POs that we have. So it's fine. And as we go on 2 days down the line, we see automated alert notification that there's an electronic temperature control system malfunctioning, which would affect the shipment. So since we have this tool right in our fingertips, we can also go and see what is the investigate the details and also mitigate that by having alternate source of modes of transportation here. And finally, how do we have the seamless integration with our providers, in this case FedEx, to add them as a quick provider and to able to send our the shipments to be able to meet the customer demand. And so the results are also shown in this fulfillment insight dashboard, where we are now able to ship that through FedEx to our customers and see an on-time pickup increase and also on-time delivery increase. So without leaving the system, we are able to compose our tailored supply chain ecosystems with the systems we are working on to solve a disruption. And this is huge for many customers out there because this is their day-to-day challenge. So we are seeing AI is playing a significant role in supply chain management. So as you know, AI has always been part of supply chain management because of the vast amount of data and processes we support. But in the future, and what we are already seeing is it will be available to each and every daily workers on the supply chain, empowering them to do more with less. So examples are, for examples like guide the users with what to do, how to fix it. So more of the document Q&A sort of thing. Empowering users with finding data insights from the data through some data Q&A. Optimizing decisions such as where do I procure from, what are my alternate suppliers, how do I place inventory across my network, and finally able to run autonomously and users managed by exceptions. And I would also say this ChatGPT is playing an important role, and we are already seeing the benefits of that.
Well, thank you very much about that. It's very interesting what you mentioned around getting news around your supply chain as a news source. How does this actually work? So where do we put as a organization, where do you find these news sources? How do you collect them and know that this is a trustworthy source and I know this is really happening, whatever it might be, good or bad?
Yeah, very good question. So this is one of the module that we have in the supply chain center called AI News. It is using the beauty of this module is you can set up this to get news on any supply chain topics. So you can have news around your warehouses, your vendor locations, particular products you're interested in, and the AI does the work behind the scenes. So we are using some sort of Bing technology to collect the news that are relevant for us, using many AI methods of also finding what's the relevant news, finding out what are the outliers, and only showing the news that are relevant for the customers. So there's a lot of clustering and outlier detection or other AI methods happening behind the scenes to make sure that the right news is shown to you. And also there's a user feedback so that if you say, okay, this is not showing the correct news for me, that will be used to train the models and increase the accuracy of the learning.
And one of the things we also spoke as a question in our previous conversations was around Microsoft's role in the supply chain of other companies. Where do you see yourself as a organization providing this service and helping people to find what they should do in their supply chain?
Yeah, very good question. So I would say, for example, if you look at what is our challenges that we can solve for a supply chain, there's no dearth of it. There's so many challenges we can solve in supply chain. But if you look at what is the macro level thing that we focus on, it is still the data problem. So customers, like I've shown you, have still multiple systems which are disconnected. Bringing insights from all this data and also able to take action has been a very much challenge. So many customers have actually built some control towers, as you have seen, It's been famous over the last years, but it didn't necessarily give in the thing that they're looking for. They are able to create nice dashboards, excellent reporting, but then taking insights and taking action from there was pretty much missing. And this is where we focus on heavily is called a supply chain command center, where the focus is not just on insights but also taking actions. So both AI recommendations on what to do and also taking actions. So our low code, no code agility with Power Automate, able to create actions in the target systems is what we focus on here.
And around the taking actions, I think there are two bits for me. Maybe you will be able to add or remove more, but around skills, as in what type of skills will be needed, uh, not just to operate something as similar to what you showed us as the dashboard, but also understand what is behind all these numbers and the AI generated news. What do you think has to change when it comes to supply chain management in order for us to make the most out of AI?
Yes, I think to make most out of the AI, the traditional, it's also it's not AI can solve. There's a lot of changes that need to happen fundamentally, right? So it's bringing people, processes, and technologies all well together, and AI is just a means to show the output that can be taken. So there's processes moving away from siloed operations to more of a and also siloed and also going from a monolithic hard rip and replace sort of things to more of a composable architecture, so that we don't worry about big long implementations to change things, but use your existing things, but use a technology platform which can bring things along and also able to generate that digital twin from which you can generate these insights. So I would say, first of all, moving away from that siloed approach at every level, right? Not only from the its organization level, across the data level, and also systems level.
And the other thing you mentioned, and for which Microsoft is extremely famous for at the moment, certainly is ChatGPT. Where do you see it as application being involved in business decisions, whether now or later at some point?
Yes. So ChatGPT has really transformed already. It transformed my work too. So a lot of so it is now keeping making supply chain systems more friendly to the supply chain operators. So I can easily talk with the supply chain systems. So this is where I think ChatGPT will take. So for example, we have released many of our own ChatGPT capabilities. One example of that is proactive supplier collaboration. So, for example, you are seeing the smart use that you are seeing, where it shows you the disruptions. Now, I have an ability to click on one of the news, select my supplier, and boom, I have an email drafted to my supplier about asking, "Hey, I've sensed a disruption, and these are all the affected POs that are coming in. What is your mitigation activity?" So the task that used to take hours to create that email, identifying what POs to look for, this is now automated through ChatGPT. And we are seeing, and we already released that, we are seeing traction on such things. And also fundamentally in our ERP and also in many of our systems, having a data Q&A where users can directly ask questions to the system without going and creating complex filter criteria or preparing meetings. For example, if you go to SNOP type of meetings, preparing that huge amount of materials like PowerPoints, all these can definitely be automated with the generative capabilities of ChatGPT.
And how many mature organizations, if it is easy to not necessarily count them, but on average, how many mature organizations do you think are out there that can really benefit from not just ChatGPT and Microsoft, but AI and higher level technology in the supply chain? Have we reached a critical level where it is really making an impact?
I think this, with the recent invent of ChatGPT, we are going with the masses now. It's earlier, it was only the companies who could afford this AI, big data scientists were the thing. Now it's no longer the case. With the APIs that are being provided to able to have APIs to ChatGPT and integrate with your own apps, is revolutionary. And we are seeing an uptick in most of the companies starting to look into ChatGPT, inherit this capabilities. It'll be probably an year out there or two before a lot of software vendors put this inherent capabilities in their solutions. But this is already out there, and many partners and SIs are starting to put this in front of customers.
Well, Raghav, thank you very much for your time. And for everyone watching right now, you can learn also a bit more a bit later after the event around what Microsoft is doing in the supply chain and the role of AI a bit later. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks for having me.